There we go. It's on. All right. Let us continue with, I think that Cold War component is very, very important, and it certainly has implications on everything that happens after it, as well as the things that are happening during that time period. So we're not quite there. What I want you to do, for those of you guys who are following along here, turn to Cold War and the Americas, page 1. It's the second one down. So we've got Cold War, paper 2, topic 12. We've covered all those in the detailed studies as we went through the remainder of the video. Now we've got Cold War and the Americas, paper 3, section 16. And obviously that paper 3 topic we've spread out over the duration of the Cold War. So now we're going to kind of wrap up with that. We've got 2 different bullet points. The first one having to do with Panama. So shall we talk about Panama? It was an interesting thing that happened in Panama, and I remember being a teenager and watching this as it was playing out. Here's the deal. You ready? Panama. The United States of America controls the Panama Canal zone from the time of a treaty that we entered in 1903. The so-called, and I think we got it listed there. Yep, the Hay Buena Varia Treaty. What? The front of the packet. Okay, about a third of the way down, Cold War in the Americas. Okay, that's what we're doing. Yeah, so we're kind of jumping around to that. So we're doubling back on picking up a few pieces with respect to the Cold War. Not a lot. The Panama Canal situation, because IB has identified that one. It's like, okay, let's talk about that. And then we touch in on Canada, Mexico, and Brazil, because that's what we've done as we've gone through there. And then we'll turn our attention to the Falklands. Okay? All right, so going back to 1903. Livy, who was president of the United States in 1903 and had his Secretary of State, Hay, sign the Hay Buena Varia Treaty with Panama in 1903? It is a long time ago. This is the beginning of the context. Some of you guys are like, oh, I remember this. We covered that at the beginning of junior year. I'll give you a clue. The palindrome. A man, a plan, a canal. Panama. Who was that guy? His cousin was the president of the United States during the World War II. His initials are TR. He's the 26th president of the United States of America. Teddy Roosevelt. Remember the deal he made with Panama? Oh my gosh. Can anyone, raise your hand, I'll take a volunteer on this. Can anyone tell me, how did the United States come to make a deal with Panama so that we got control of some territory that we could build a canal in? Not quite. Not quite. Yes. Panama wanted to become independent. Okay? From what country? Starts with a C. Yes, Colombia. Okay? Panama wanted to get independence from Colombia. President Roosevelt was like, we'll help you, Panama, because why? Had we been trying to negotiate some kind of a deal with Colombia? Do you remember this? We wanted to negotiate some kind of a deal with Colombia because the French had tried to build a canal, didn't work out, and so Roosevelt's like, hey, well, let's do some deal. And then the Colombians got pretty tough. I mean, it's kind of like if you go to a car dealership and you're like negotiating with one of the car dealers, and then like they walk out of the room and they bring it a little bit closer, and then you come back in the room, but you're not quite seeing eye to eye, and then you walk in the room with a paramilitary force. Oh, that's a different kind of a car dealership experience than probably you're ever going to have in your lifetime. Yeah, but that's how it ended. The Panamanians had wanted to get independence, and Roosevelt's like, we're going to help you out here. And what was the price that the Panamanians, in a sense, had to pay for the help from the United States that made the difference? Exactly. Let us build a canal. Let us take make sure you write this down. We had complete sovereign control over the Panama Canal Zone territory. It was a territory. We almost had elected as President of the United States John McCain, and some people are like, well, was he born in the United States of America? He was born because his dad was an admiral in the United States Navy, and his grandpa had been an admiral in the United States Navy. He was born in the Panama Canal Zone when his dad was stationed in that particular area. Got that? So that's part of our country. Write this down. And some people are like, that's our country. We got it. I don't know about fair and square, but we got it, man. In 1903, we got it. Yeah, we got a better deal from Panama than we did what Colombia was offering. We got all the land. Yeah, but put this down. This is interesting because put this down. As far as the Panamanian economy goes, the canal is a huge part of it. I mean, all kinds of ships and businesses come into Panama that would not, if but for the fact that they weren't transferring things from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa. This is why, let's see if I've said this before. I said it last year. See if you guys remember. Raise your hand if you can tell me. What country is now working closely with China to build another canal between the Atlantic and the Pacific? Nicaragua, yeah, Nicaragua. Okay, and I think they're in the process of getting that thing done. You know, China's been busy. Yeah. So anyway, they've got that set up in there. And actually, the Panama Canal Zone. You can write this down. In the Panama Canal, Panama is actually, since this thing that we're about to talk about, they've actually updated their canal. Because when it was built, I mean, it was wide enough to handle the ships that were on the ocean at that time. But now, oh my gosh, have you seen some of those like cargo ships that are in the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans? They're huge. They're really wide, and they can't fit in the original Panama Canal Zone thing. So what did Panama do? They made a bigger one. Yeah, in some places, I mean, literally, it's like it's just a whole nother Panama Canal thing. Well, here's the deal. In the beginning before the 1970s, Panama was like, hey, United States, can we redo that deal? Because, yeah. Can we redo the deal? And they started looking at it, I want to say, prior to the Jimmy Carter administration, but there was a new deal that was reached. And it's called the Torious Carter Treaties. There is President Carter, there is the President of Panama, Omar Torious. General Omar Torious, whenever somebody has general in their title, you get a little bit of a sense of, gosh, how much democracy there is actually in the country at that particular time. Yeah, but, in defense, General Omar Torious and so forth, on behalf of his country, made a deal with the United States. And here, make sure you write this down, because implicit in this was, if Panama doesn't get a new deal, a new treaty, something bad might happen to the canal. The canal could be damaged, destroyed, not necessarily by the Panamanian government, but maybe the Panamanian government couldn't control elements within Panama that would be very angry and anti-U.S. I mean, how hard is it to mess up with a canal? It's not that hard. I mean, you just blow up some locks and blow up this, that, and so forth, and you've disabled it from regular use. So that's a problem. So it becomes interesting and controversial, but ultimately, Jimmy Carter, Democratic president, following on the initial treaty negotiations that had taken place during previous Republican administration, they finished the deal. The deal was signed September 7th, 1977. Okay? And what are the terms of the deal? Let's get the terms of the deal. Panama gets its canal back by 1999. Okay? So, U.S. sovereignty over that Panama Canal would disappear. No more territorial Panama Canal Zone. But the United States would have guaranteed that we have a permanent right to defend the canal. So it's almost like the deal that we had as far as like Cuba for a while. And we have although the primary defense of the canal is on Panama, and so we have access to that canal. So we can continue using it, but as far as the pride element, the ownership element, who gets the canal? Panama does. Okay? And the canal would remain neutral. Of course, this is all taking place, ultimately it goes into effect after the Cold War is over, so it's not like a concern about the Soviets. Okay, question? You would call it like either the New Panama Canal Treaty or the Torious-Carter Treaty. Okay? Beginning in 1999. So there will be a transfer of ownership and operation and so forth. Because the United States, we're going to continue using it. Oh my gosh, it's a big component to our economy, our military, and so forth. All right? Now, if it's a treaty, actually, let's double check this. Landon? President Obama signed an agreement with Iran during his presidency. Iran agreed to not develop nuclear weapons. The United States, for our part, agreed to release control over some Iranian financial assets. Do you recall if that was a treaty, or was that an executive agreement between two countries that was binding on those two countries only so long as our president was president? It was an agreement. Why didn't Obama send it to the United States Senate to have it officially ratified as a treaty which would be binding regardless of who is president? Because they wouldn't accept it. Put this down. It requires a 2/3 vote to get a treaty through. Okay? And there have been times, some of you guys remember, what was the name of the treaty after World War I? Oh my gosh, you're going to need to know this from May. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, it starts with a V. Rhymes with Versailles, the Versailles Treaty. Did the Treaty of Versailles get ratified by the United States Senate in a 2/3? No. No, you guys don't remember this? Oh my gosh. No, it never got accepted. What was the component part of the Versailles Treaty that like senators like Bora from Idaho and other senators are like, you're tying our hands, our United States sovereignty to a bunch of people around the world that are hanging out in like some gathering in like a league, not a league of justice. The League of Nations is what it was called. We didn't want to be part of the League of Nations. And so Wilson was like, but I'm not going to change it. And you're like, well, no, then we're not going to pass it. And Wilson's like, well, I'm going to go around the country and I'm going to try and persuade everyone that they should support it. And then he had a stroke. Boom! And he was like out for like 7 months. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Ashley, you don't remember that? It happened. No, that was World War I that ended and so forth. So here's an interesting thing. Did Carter send the Panama Canal Treaty to the Senate for ratification? Yes. It's a treaty. Was there opposition? Yes. Yes, there was, including a certain politician at the time who ultimately would be elected as president in 1980, Ronald Reagan. He says, that's our canal. We got it. Fair and, square or, whatever shape, we got it. So we shouldn't hand it over. But it was ratified. Write it down. The vote was 68-32 in the United States Senate. And there was some key support from among Republican senators. No, not the Iran one. That never has been ratified. That wasn't a treaty. In fact, some of you guys know this. When President Trump came into office, did he continue the executive agreement that Obama had with Iran? No. He's like, no, I don't think you guys are this is a good deal. The Iran already had the money and so forth, but he's like, yeah, I'm going to reinstate sanctions, and because I don't think you guys are really following through. Remember when the United States, Ashton, remember when the United States and the Soviet Union, remember what Reagan said, we can make a deal reducing weapons? And he used some fancy Russian phrase that translated to English, trust but verify. We need to be able, if we're going to make it, this is going to be very important when we get to like dealing with Iraq. If you're agreeing to not have certain weapons, you need to let our guys in and look around on surprise visits to see if you're actually following the terms of that agreement. And that was one of the big criticisms, not just Trump, but Republicans and others had with the Iran deal, that the Iranians weren't really opening things up so that the United States and others could inspect what they were really up to. And has Iran actually like continued to develop nuclear weapons then? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have. Yeah. And it's be really interesting because Biden's in a difficult position now in the beginning of his administration what to do about Iran. Anyway, the Panama Canal Treaty, very vigorously debated, was passed 1978. Okay? Meeting the two-thirds requirement just barely. 68 to 32. Most of the Democrats all went for it, and a significant chunk of Republicans went for it as well. Two-thirds is a tough margin to get in the United States Senate. By the way, do you think there will be two-thirds of a vote to convict former President Trump in the United States Senate at the conclusion of the impeachment trial? No. I think you're going to get 50 Democrats and maybe half dozen Republicans-ish at most, but they're doing that right now. So, yeah, so Trump will have been, he's been impeached twice, but not convicted once and then probably not convicted again because it's hard to get that two-thirds. Okay? Questions about the Panama? Anybody know the answer? Why go forward with that? Yeah. Yeah. One of the key things is if there is a conviction, a lot of constitutional scholars are saying that that would prohibit him from running for president again. Obviously, you can't throw him out of office because he's already out of office. Okay, so that component isn't there anymore. Although, there's a number of Republicans who are saying, no, that's actually not legitimate. You can only convict somebody after an impeachment if they're in office. And of course, the other people come back and say, well, what does that mean? You get like a free pass in the last month of your presidency? Or if you're just about to be convicted by the United States Senate, you could resign and then they can't convict you. So, I don't know. But the interesting thing is, Nixon resigned. Could he have run for president again? Can Trump, if Trump isn't convicted, can Trump run for president again? I think so. Who would like Trump to run for president again? Here's an interesting group of people. On the one hand, you've got a component within the Republican Party. It's a pretty significant component measured right now as far as Trump supporters, right? Ashton's like, yeah, we'll be right there. Trump 2024, huh? But, Ashton, do you think if Trump gets the Republican nomination in 2024, do you think he would win?
No.
Ashton. Maybe? Who knows? In 4 years, that's a long time. You guys will still be in college by then, maybe. Hopefully not Zooming classes. Hopefully you're actually attending an actual college campus. That'd be cool. Go away to college. Anyway, but that's a long time from now in history. Maybe Democrats are like, go right ahead, Republicans. Nominate Trump again. See how that works out for you. So, anyway, so we'll see how it all plays out. In any event, in 1978, the Panama Canal Treaty was ratified. It was implemented. Who has the Panama Canal Treaty or has the territory now? Panama. Can you still have ships going through there? Yes, and you can get some fat ships going through there now. Okay? All right. We're going to talk very briefly about Canada, then we'll go to Mexico, then we'll do Brazil. Okay? Okay, Rodrigo's really interested. Oh my gosh, disappeared. What happened? The door opened, nobody came in. And the evidence has been wiped away. These guys are like, no big deal. They open up the door, they wipe down the thing to get all of those nasty things that you guys are like walking around with. Right? But I just had my second shot yesterday, so hopefully that'll work. Yeah. Yeah, it's a two-parter. Yeah. Yeah. I'm more vulnerable than you guys are. All right? All right, here we go. Canada. Oh, Canada. Write this down. Oh, Canada. During the last phases of the Cold War, Canada was much more supportive, a relationship with Reagan and so forth, very supportive, a very close relationship. Brian Mulroney, do you see his name right up there? He's the guy on the far right. Brian Mulroney, he was the Canadian Prime Minister. I want to say the Conservative Party, anyway, the lead right-wing party in Canada. So that worked out very well. There wasn't as much drama as there was, say, during the time of the prime ministership of Pierre Trudeau. Do you remember Pierre Trudeau? With his pictures hanging around and buddy-buddy with Castro. It's not like he's communist or anything, but trying to sort of find a middle ground-ish. But Mulroney was much more of a supporter. And I mean, literally in this last phase of the Cold War, it's kind of like, yeah, we're winning, so, what do you do? Frank, what do you do when you're winning a basketball game and there's still like 2 minutes on the clock and you got a 20-point lead? Switch teams. You don't switch teams. I mean, it's kind of like, at that point, like the starters sit down and, everyone comes on the bench and everyone cheers and it's like, Write this down. One of the things that Canada liked about the end of the Cold War was, they were able to reduce their military. They were able to pull troops from Europe. They were able to downsize. People literally said, hey, there's a Cold War dividend. The war is over. Maybe now we don't have to spend as much money on military. What do you think about that today? Should we just cut our military budget, like defund the military? You're like, are there threats out there? Iran? Are there any other countries that economies are growing and they're investing in the latest space technologies? Yeah. So anyway, but that's cool for Canada. And one of the things that they do as far as the United States and Canada and Mexico, there you go, you can write that down, 1994, we sign NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement, although we now have a new agreement signed by Trump and Justin Trudeau and Enrique Peña Nieto. It's called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA. Anyway, it's a update of the free trade that goes along there. Okay? Yeah, so, yeah. Mexico also, so we got the Mexican leader up there. Mexico also is very happy with the way things worked out, especially when we're no longer concerned about Cuba as much. We're no longer concerned about the Sandinistas as much. Ashton, if the Sandinista, former leader gets elected as Nicaragua, should we start raising money and putting mines in their harbor? Yes. He's like, we're going to win. They're going to support the That's such an 80s statement. No, we're on the way out. Brazil, last thing that we'll say about Brazil, we'll say this. They shift from military dictatorship to democratic rule. There is the first, 1989, the first democratically elected president in many, many, many years, although they still have all kinds of various different issues. Next time, there, Fernando Collor de Mello. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. It's in Portuguese, so I don't know. Next time we talk about these two, Argentina versus Britain. Who's going to win in the Falklands-Malvinas War? Anyway, that'll be next time.